Hey everyone, and welcome back. I want to talk about components, basic components. We're not getting into really deep details on how to use components super properly. I just want you to increase your efficiency, make you also feel like you can build better components in the future, but let's start here. So we have these reusable assets. The only problem is that you're just going to need to copy and paste them over and over again, and maybe it's not super efficient. It's still efficient. It's definitely better than nothing, 100%, big improvement. But if we turn these into components, they would be so much better. So let's jump right in. Really, the only difference I would say between this and a component is you'll be able to access it in your assets table over here. So let's jump in. So these are our current link components. So I'm going to copy them with a Command C or Control C and paste it. I'm going to drag them right out. So these are our links. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to deselect the group, ungroup them. So for me, it's Shift Command G. You can even go into our right click. It's going to be Shift Control G for Windows users. So now that we have all of our components that we want to build, we can do a couple different things. Now we can either just create a component like this, or using the shortcut, we can create individual components, or we can select all of them. So if I'm going to go back in time and undo that, we can select all of them. So we can create multiple components, and now I can access all those components right here. Whenever I want, just drag and drop them into whatever field I need and so on. So these are components and they're not really, you can edit them, but they're going to be reusable and you won't be able to necessarily do much in terms of touching this master component. So there's two things here. We have our master component and then we have what we call an instance, and these are copies of the master. So whatever you do to the instance will not affect the master. Whatever you do to the master, though, will affect the instance, as you can tell. If I select all of these and I say change the border radius to 100, that's going to change everywhere. Now, the great thing about instances is that you can swap them pretty quickly. So if I go into here and I select member only, this is where our instances are. I can go and select outside link. So if I want to switch something really quickly on the fly, I can do that. But I'm going to just go back quickly and fix that. So now that we have these components, we can do a couple of things. We can either leave them as is, or we can actually go the route of using something that I like to call a variants. And variants are very powerful. So if we select them all, since they're all very similar, the reason why you would do this is because you have a similar component to the other similar master component. So an example is primary and secondary buttons, or different states like hover states versus active states, and when you're thinking about things like inputs and forms. Now, for our little links here, the only difference really is color. It's the color and the type. The differentiator is essentially the color, but the type is public, member only, login, or sign up, and outside link. So if we select all our components, we can click over here, combine them as variants. That's going to put them in this little box. And inside this box, now we have the link version, we have the member only version, and we have the login or sign up version and the outside link version. If we click this bounding box around our variants, we can go in here and specify a couple of things. So they're called properties, and those are the differences between the components. So we're going to say that our property type here is the type of link, or link type. You can go deeper. You can have so many different types of properties. You can have icons and so on and so forth. It can get really advanced. But for this, we're just going to keep it super simple. So we have 4 variants. Now, if I were to say take a copy, or I have them here now. So it's in my assets panel over here. Now, if you were to take a copy and now go here, you can select member only. It looks a little different. This is going to be great for more complex components. So that's how you create a component, and that's how you start to use variants. The next step I want to talk about is actually creating a component for this over here. So I'm just going to drag a copy over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this public link, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to select in my layers the links container that is housing all of these versions. And I'm going to paste it. There it is. You can see it's outlined in purple. You can see that layer. I'm going to just shift it right to the top, and I'm going to take the rest of the links, select them all here, so I can select them in my layer panel too and delete them. Then I'm going to take this link and I'm going to copy it and paste it. I'm just going to make sure that's dragged right back into this layer, because sometimes when you copy and paste and there's only one layer within, it'll paste right outside. So we can copy and paste it again and again and again and again and again and again. I know that's kind of crazy, but just stick with me. I promise it's going to get better. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have this set up with a bunch of different links, I'm going to turn it into a component. And that's it. And you may be thinking, what are we doing here now? Like, we have a bunch of links. So the great thing about components is you can't add to an instance. So you can't necessarily say, okay, now I want, this another public link in here. It doesn't work that way. Once an instance has been created, you can't add to it. But you can hide what you have added. So if you make a very long list, you can take whatever you don't need and press, like, say, delete, and it's just going to hide them in that panel. Then you can go in here and start specifying what you want. Oh, I want it to be this one an outside link, and this one a member only link, and this one a login or sign up link, and so on and so forth. And you never know how many links you're going to have on one page, so it's great to just prepare for the absolute worst and throw them in there. And now you can just either grab links or just, grab this every time you need a new page and just keep on going, and then, link them together. And now you have these components that are reusable. Now you may be thinking, oh my goodness, like, why are we doing all this? Like, it just seems so excessive. Well, maybe for sitemaps, but this is a great way to demonstrate how useful they can be. And if I really wanted to, change things, you can start to tell why they're so powerful for things like user interfaces, because sometimes you make one change on a button because maybe you don't like rounded buttons anymore and you want, like, flat buttons with, like, strong sharp corners. You're going to have to go through all your designs and find all those buttons. Now if you were using components, you would switch one and it will be modified everywhere else. If I wanted to, switch here and say that this no longer has, like, a rounded corner, like I did over here, and it put the border radius to 0, that's going to reflect everywhere. So that's how you use components to create some pretty awesome reusable assets that you can use within your local file. Remember that if you have a free starter plan, this is the only way to use components. You cannot use components across multiple files. You can only use them within the file that you're working in.